Holy Happy Hour Batman! I am Father Ben. I'm an Episcopal priest and gaming enthusiast, and on this show I am joined by heroes of the gaming and geek world to talk about life, faith, spirituality, game design, philosophy, and whatever else comes up. Tonight we have two amazing guests. I am very excited that a couple of Drakes, Shawn and Navi Drake, are joining us from Drake's Design Studio. They're going to be joining us in just a few minutes. They're the creators of games like Court of Blades and Dead Belt, which is on Kickstarter right now. So you should go check it out while we're doing this episode for sure. We'll link that in the chat as we go. It'll be in the show notes afterwards, so you can check it out on Kickstarter right now. Dead Belt is a unique strategy tabletop RPG made for 1 or 2 players, blending role-playing decision-making with procedural generation, bad news, and a heaping dose of late-stage capitalism in space. I'm really excited to talk with them about Dead Belt. I think it's going to be, it just looks so awesome, so I think you're all going to really enjoy the conversation we're going to have in just a few minutes. So stick around. We'll go into all of that and more with them in just a few moments. Don't forget to check out apongames.com, or allportsopen.com, our network hosts our show, Holy Happy Hour Batman. Yeah, you can go to I put in my show notes, I put the wrong word. I put Discord when I meant to say Patreon. apongames.com and the Apon Games Patreon. 2 great ways to grab some original TTRPGs from Apon Games. And that's my only plug this week. I don't have a lot of housekeeping. We're going to be off next week. No new episode next Monday night on the 19th. And we're back on the 26th with another great episode. Actually, another returning guest, Nevin Holmes, is going to be coming with Jam, Nevin's partner at the new Dynaberry Press publishing. So we have two guests in one press company tonight, and again in 2 weeks, and it was a complete coincidence, honestly. So should be another awesome episode. So all right, it is happy hour. We're moving. We don't have a lot of housekeeping stuff going on this week, so we're just moving right along to our cocktail of the week. It is happy hour, and we've got our cocktail on the screen. So I wanted to make, I know we're talking about Dead Belt tonight a lot, and that's kind of the point of tonight's episode, but I really wanted to do a Court of Blades inspired cocktail. So I called this, I don't even know how you pronounce this word. I'm going to say it's Ilrien. They'll correct me or not correct me in just a few minutes. But it's the Ilrien Aperitif is my name for this cocktail, inspired by Court of Blades. This is, okay, oddly enough, it's kind of my take on a World War I time period cocktail. So it's not like a Renaissance cocktail by any means, but it is called French 75, the original version. This is my take on it, and it just kind of, to me, spoke to the feel of Court of Blades a little bit, which is, how you make this drink is, my version is 1 ounce of gin, 3/4 ounces of creme de violet, which is a way overused on this show drink. I use creme de violet way too often on this show. Like, nobody else besides me probably has it, but I use it a lot because I really like it. 1/4 ounce of simple syrup, 3/4 ounces of lemon juice, and then 2 to 3 ounces of chilled champagne with a lemon peel for garnish. So basically, you're going to take a cocktail shaker, fill it with ice. You're going to add your gin, your creme de violet, your simple syrup, and your lemon juice. Shake it well to really combine it, and then strain it into a champagne flute and top it with champagne, so it's about 2 or 3 ounces of champagne or so, and then garnish that with a lemon peel, and that is your aperitif for you to enjoy. It's actually not an aperitif at all, because it's actually kind of a strong cocktail. I did knock the gin back a little bit. The French 75, if you don't know it, it is named after a weapon of war, and because it's supposed to hit you pretty hard, but it's basically like remove the creme de violet and add a little more gin, and that's basically the French 75. So it's not exactly, it's a pretty strong drink, honestly. So you could drink it as an aperitif anyway, and see where it takes you. So all right, that's the cocktail of the week. And remember, if you do make it at home, you have to let me know whether, that you enjoyed it. Or not. If you don't enjoy it, don't tell me. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, you should tell me either way. I always like to hear when people talk about whether they enjoyed the cocktail. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring our guests up here on the show. Let me just do what I have to do to bring them forward. A couple of Drakes. Welcome to Holy Happy Hour Batman.
Hey there.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Thanks for making the time during a busy Kickstarter campaign to come on the show.
It's our pleasure. I mean, anytime we can not be hitting F5 on that Kickstarter,
Is that the
is a good
refresh
time.
button? Is that what that
That's the
is?
refresh button. Yeah.
I just
Did it
assume.
move? It's not updating. What's going on?
I know. I
Yeah.
know. I hear you. I did a campaign, a crowdfunding campaign this summer for my game, Broken, a tragic romance game. But I only itch funded that game, and
Hmm.
it was much smaller scale. So
Yeah.
I did refresh it a lot, like a crazy person. But it was like less. There was a lot. There was long periods where nothing happened. So I kind of weaned myself off of the constant refresh.
The data, though, the delicious, delicious data, like, oh, people are reacting to it. How are they reacting to it? Is it good? Is it, and
Yeah.
that it just gets behind like your ear. And then
Oh, the
there's,
referral data too.
yeah,
Where are they
exactly.
coming from? What's our click-through rate?
How did these people find us? Yeah.
Oh, that's that. Yeah, that kind of data. That way lies insanity, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody will tell you that it's the worst thing you can possibly do for yourself, and yet I don't know. Maybe I have an appetite for self-destruction. Which, by the way, classy drink. The Ilrian would be very, very pleased with that.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, if you ever feel like making it and trying it, let me know. I don't know if you
Oh,
can get creme de violet. I get it from a particular place. I have a source, basically.
okay. You got a
I
guy.
got a guy. Yeah.
If I had to find a substitution, do you think that like Saint Germain, like elderberry liqueur,
Yeah,
might
Saint Germain would be a really good.
get us in the ballpark?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, that it would be different but good. And actually, I use Saint Germain sometimes also for the same kind of thing. So yeah, I think that would do it for sure. And you can get Saint Germain like literally anywhere.
Yep.
It's really easy to come by. Fun fact, you may already know this. I didn't. Oh, hold on. Is our sound going through? Yeah, okay. I'm looking at the wrong thing. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong thing on OBS. Fun fact, I didn't know this. I thought Saint Germain was like something that's been around for a long time. And then I found out it's like a new invention of the liquor industry, and it's like only
Yep.
like a couple years old. And I was like,
Yep.
wow, they successfully tricked me into thinking it was an old spirit,
They gave it a well-established, rich name.
Yeah.
They're like, it'll carry it, don't
Oh,
worry.
okay. So we're tracing this all the way back to Istvan Rogoshki to Saint Germain, right? Like that's
Yes.
that's how far back it goes. It too is 300 years old, but
Yes,
no, it's
exactly.
not.
Yeah, put it in a bottle that looks like it's like a Prohibition era bottle, and then there you
Yep.
go. Convince somebody like me that it's just been around for a long time.
Oh, see, like I didn't know that either, but now I can call myself like an early adopter.
There you go, exactly. Yeah, I used that a decent amount. I mean, like, I was actually thinking, like, man, I really got to shake up what I make in my cocktails for the show, change things up a little more. And then I've been moving. So I was, like, moving my home bar from the other house to this new house. And when you move a home bar, you realize either how much or how little you have. And for me, it was certainly the former, not the latter. So I was like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, well, maybe I don't need to change things up too much. I actually have like way too many bottles of spirits in my collection, honestly. So just keep using the tried and true ones that I have, I guess.
There you go.
Well, so speaking of the Kickstarter, yeah, how tell us how things have been going so far, other than the constant refresh and the constant data and all that.
It's good. We funded in 6 hours.
Mhm.
Dead Belt is coming to fruition. We're already two stretch goals in, and looking
Creeping
forward.
up on the third.
I know we
We're
are
real
very,
close.
very close to the third.
This one's been a lot more relaxed than the Court of Blades, which has been kind of nice. With Court of Blades, we were so high stress the entire month. It was, being on and making sure that we're fielding everyone's questions, and
Mm.
it's kind of a blessing in disguise. This was a little bit slower. We're able to kind of relax. I didn't even check it. I checked it once today just to field the questions, and then like mostly I was just playing video games.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. That sounds great. I was talking not too long ago, a couple episodes ago, with Spencer Campbell and like about
Mhm.
the stuff we're talking about here with the way these go, and he was just saying like, I mean, that's why for Rune he just did a 7 day Kickstarter because he was not going
Mhm.
to go through the like insanity again of that. the doldrums phase, like what you guys are entering into now, right? Where you have like long periods of time where maybe it doesn't update as often, or there's not as many people coming to it, and just how maddening that period of time can be. So you're good to spend it playing video games, I think.
Right.
I don't know. I feel like it's maddening the first time, and then the second time you're like, it's the old hat. Like we've done this rodeo before,
Okay,
and I
hear
can
that.
almost ignore it. It's just one more thing I have to check every day and make sure that everybody's taken care of.
Yeah.
We dissent here. It's definitely a constant weight on my mind. But the doldrums don't bother me so much. Like the idea that there's a vaguely regimented panic that goes in like that first 2 days, right? Where it's constant motion, questions, messages and things like that. Give me a long period of like, okay, it's moved a little bit. We moved the needle. We're making progress. We're pushing forward, but I didn't have 50 messages in my box today.
That's
so
nice.
It's a good day.
Yeah. So tell us, I guess, give us the rundown of Dead Belt. 1 to 2 players is such a intriguing sort of start to like reading about a game. It's like, there's plenty of duet games and there's so many solo games now, but like, yeah, that's such an intriguing opening line, for a game.
Yeah. So it started off as a solo game, and it was one of our friends. Like, this is how much I love our community. One of our friends on Twitter was like, I can really imagine this being co-op or any other number of things. And we looked at it and went, you know what, you're right. We could probably swing that. So that's how we went about. Like we literally just took the idea from a friend who was like, you should do this thing, and we're like, all right, let's go do the thing. And the game translated very well to co-op. It just needed a few adjustments, some new rules, some new items to kind of support co-op play. Bigger boats. We added a whole new tier of ships, so there's some really big ships that you can get yourself into trouble with now, which is super fun. So it ended up working out really well, but I would say that it was purely accidental that it worked out so well as a co-op and rivalry game. It wasn't designed from the beginning with that in mind.
But I mean, when we were playtesting it the first time, we were basically playing co-op, but I didn't have a character.
I made him read all the prompts to me.
So I had to do all the voices.
I was the card you read it.
Yeah, exactly. She's like, what's the 7 of spades, right? And so then I'd read it, and then I'd tell her, and it was GM light, right? Because I had almost like a script, and I could ask leading questions and things like that off of that. How are you feeling? What's going on here? But then, yeah, we had a couple of people on Twitter who were like, hey, can I play this with like my roommate? Like my roommate doesn't really play RPGs or anything like that. Like, is there any way that I could get him in on this? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. There's probably. And it took us about 2, maybe 3 weeks to really nail down mechanics, but it worked. So very, very, very well. A lot of fun.
That's awesome. Yeah. So how long has the game kind of been in production? How long has it been since you sort of pitched it to each other, or, what's the design history, I guess?
Oh, no.
So October of last year is when it came out.
You remember that?
I do.
That's amazing.
I do prep. So October of last year is when it came out, but before that, it started off in September of last year is when I first pitched it. We spent all that September writing and revising and playtesting, and then like the earliest Ashcan came out in October. 2 months after that, maybe a month and a half after that, we put out our first update to it. And it's been like the growth and the life cycle of an Ashcan being the revision and everything. We took a lot of really good feedback, and we cleaned up the pros, and we tightened up the mechanics, and now it sings.
Nice. That's awesome.
I can't attest to the dates. He could be totally lying, and I'm like,
Which is interesting, because if you read your bios, so speaking of prep, like the little prep that I get to do for the show, if you read your bios, I definitely have the sense that if one of you two is more of an, what do they call that, the phrase that people use all the time is like an, oh my gosh, type A.
It's complimentary.
I was looking for type A. Type A personality. It's definitely, I would have thought that the person who was better at remembering the dates, it would have been the other way around. That's what I would have guessed based on
Type A.
Yeah, that's what I was guessing from
Detail-oriented.
reading the. I see, detail oriented being maybe a bit of a different thing.
No, I'm a cheater. So I keep notes. Everything that I think is going to be important, I have a notebook for it, and anything else is just purged because I have an atrocious memory. I have a chronically bad memory, so that's why it's so funny whenever, like, when did this happen?
In the past, like it's done now.
Yesterday, last year, I don't know.
See, my problem is I'm neither a type A personality, nor do I have a good memory, nor am I good note taker. I'm none of those. So like so that just means I'm disorganized. That's what it comes to.
I love it.
But the what is that? The there's a word for this in English. That's my catchphrase. The belief, the necessary faith to take that leap and actually swing anyway, even when you know for a fact that you're not type A or detail oriented or a good note taker, but to still be out here and doing it, like that's bravery, man. I like that.
I just need a lot of people around me who to support me, you know what I'm saying? Like, well, and for a long time at church with my church job, as a priest, for months I didn't have an administrator, and those were some dark days.
Yeah.
I just got.
I can imagine.
Yeah, I just got an administrator, and she just started a couple weeks ago, and things are like the stress is just rolling off me. Like it's just like thank you. Thank God.
No, I feel that in my soul. We were just trying to expand our social net and reach over to Facebook. So there's a lot of good gaming communities over on Facebook.
Yeah.
And it's like I can't personally do this. So once again, we reach out to a friend, like, can I please pay you to be my manager for this account? So it's been great because he's like super on top of everything. If any questions come through, he pushes them straight to us, and since we're hyper available on Twitter, he can always get a hold of us like that. So anything important gets pushed straight to us, so we can go and react, but we don't have to watch it ourselves. Money well spent.
Yeah. Well, that kind of does address a question that I was sort of had in my mind about, there's two of you, and that's very interesting because, as you may have heard me say, and the next episode of the show will also be another design team of two people who are also partners, like life partners and business partners. And it's interesting, like having one versus two, or like having a team. I've been seeing a lot of chatter among people in the circles that I'm in TTRPGs who are talking a lot about the challenges of having to be everything. Like, right? Like in TTRPGs, in order to run indie TTRPGs, you have to be your marketing manager, your game designer, your creative, you got to be your finance person. You got to be everything. You got to do it all yourself. There's no one else doing it for you. And I just was one of the things that I figured we could end up talking about is like how the two of you balance that and what that's like being like partners in so many different ways, and like what that looks like the way you two happen to do it.
You want to go ahead?
Sure.
I talk too much.
That's not true at all. I love it. Like, I can't imagine any other way to do this. And I'm going to trot out our one joke again. I bring her a sonnet with dice notation, and she comes back with a game. Like it makes it playable, right? She wears way more hats than I do, and she executes way better than I ever will. But by the same token, like, there's the old saying that like ideas are not necessarily the valuable part of the equation, because everybody has ideas. It's the execution thereunto that makes it. But by the same token, like the tone and the execution, like that starts on the Google Doc, but she carries that to fruition. So
yeah, do you want to add to that at all, or?
No, I mean, I do. I wear a ridiculous amount of hats, but he's underselling himself, because what he does is kind of like, it's not just, I have some ideas. It's like I have these ideas, with a really great pitch.
This is how we
And
make
some
it
beautiful,
happen.
like some really beautiful, evocative prose and some ideas that really get me hooked and excited about it. And like, I wouldn't be able to make games the way that I do without him, because I don't get excited about my own stuff the way I get excited about his stuff. I got a game right now I've been working on for like 6 months. When we work together on a game, we'll knock it out in 30 days. Me by myself, I got a game. It's about 90% done, and I have put it in my desk and I don't even want to look at it.
I want to look at it.
No, that's
but
really
that's
interesting. Yeah.
That's the thing. It's a feedback loop, right?
Right.
Because both of us make a design team. Either of us together, probably either of us separately, probably wouldn't be nearly so prolific.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting because like part of what makes, I mean, part of a good game, I think, is having a good sales pitch for it, like having a
Sure.
good pitch for the game. Like, not everyone is necessarily. I think not everyone necessarily has that skill. Like, not everyone's going to be the best salesperson for their own game. So I guess not having a great pitch doesn't mean it's not a good game. But it, like, a lot of games, you know, you hear those games that like really just sell themselves based on the pitch,
Yep.
right? And like, there's something about that. So, you know, like, it also just helps the entire process if like you're not just coming with a game idea, but you're coming with like a really good pitch, and it gets, and then if it gets the other person excited, you're already like snowballing. You're already
Yeah.
going down the road towards like making the thing happen. And without that energy and excitement, like, it's just not going to be, you know, the creative process is going to be a lot harder. The production process is going to be a lot harder.
That's so much of our process too. It starts off with, you know, a new mechanic or something that we've seen, and we're making coffee, and you know, the fateful question is like, if we were going to make something with this, what would it look like, right? And then we're just spitballing, snowballing back and forth, and we can fold this into that. Oh, and that can drive this particular thing, and it's going to deliver on this experience. And then she's like, "How do we mechanize that?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, let me dig through the pile of mechanics that I've found over the course of all the various games that I've read and all the various stuff that I've absorbed." And then she's like, "Okay, cool. Go and write, like, give me what the tone of this game sounds like, and then we can work from there." And then it's almost done.
Yeah. Well, how often is like no to an idea a part of your process? Like, how often are you guys shooting down ideas that you have, or like talking through something and then just coming to the conclusion, like, you know what? No, that's not one we're following through.
Fairly often.
We kill darlings.
We have
Yeah.
we have a running document that is my, I guess, kind of like a schedule, but it's not. I'm a little floaty. I don't like a schedule, so it's basically high priority, low priority, and then the ideas pile.
Someday.
So sometimes we have ideas that are not great, not polished. We don't have the right fit mechanically for it, or it's just we're not passionate about it right now. But I don't ever throw the idea away. I just stick it in the ideas pile.
Yeah.
And sometimes things get dragged back out of there, and they get a new coat of paint, and then we work them. So I don't think we actually kill our darlings very often. I think we put our darlings like on a shelf, and we're like, maybe later, darling.
So that's usually when I ask you a pointed question, like from that chair over there. We're like, hey, so, you know, and we have the conversation, and then by the end of it, you've made a point, I've made a point. There, you know, we counterpoint back and forth a couple times, and I'm like, that's just not going to work. Let's try something else. So within games,
That's different.
yeah, we kill darlings fairly often. As far as like moving stuff from the someday to never, that I don't think that's happened yet.
Oh, I'm the worst with the red pen.
Yeah.
I think I get on his nerves sometimes. I'm like, that's not gonna work. We got to fix this.
I snap back fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to, right? Like, you have to. You can make okay games without doing a lot of red pen, right? But you're never going to make great games without doing it. I feel like with a pretty rigorous, you know, no process, editing process, that kind of thing.
Well, she's my player. Like, she tells me what feels good as a player, because
Yeah.
I typically run games. I very rarely get to actually like sit down and play a game.
Yeah.
Which is why this game is so cool, because I get to play it.
Yeah.
But you know, like I can extrapolate what I think the process or what the feeling is for a player, but I can't, you know, I don't sit there often enough to know it more than from like a theoretical level. That's why she's so big on she's so handy to have, so powerful in telling me like, okay, look, as a player, this is feels bad design. Don't do that. And that I've definitely taken to trusting that. So
Yeah.
Yeah, if you ever look through like the playbooks and the moves that we write into games and you wonder to yourself, who wrote this? 9 times out of 10.
hey, what would be
I have a really cool idea for something that I would want to do. I'm putting it in.
what would be cool here? Like as a player, what is an interesting narrative permission?
That's a cool. I think that's a really cool dynamic. Like, I can see why that dynamic works really well. Like, cause like having that constant ability to have player feedback, and it's not exactly playtesting. It is playtesting, but it's like not in the same level of playtesting, because it's not just like, okay, I'm bringing in my friends to playtest. That's a true outside voice. It's like it's an inside playtest. I don't know. That's like kind of a little bit of a different thing.
It's play is what it really is. Like,
Yeah.
We also have a home group that is, I mean, they're the most wonderful group you could ever ask for. Anytime we have a game, they're like, well, why aren't we playing that right now? So we kind of figure it out ourselves, and then we take it to our normal group, because we have such good rapport with them. We don't have to worry about, are they going to give us are they going to give us like real feedback? Are they going to pull punches?
It was fine.
Yeah,
I have never heard it was fine.
So like our group, we take it to them, and they tell us like, any kludgy parts, like any hot messes, we fix that up, and then the ash can usually gets pushed out, unless it's a game jam, because if it's a game jam, we just push it out. We're like, good luck.
Yeah.
Let us know if it doesn't work.
Is it on fire still? Okay, good. It's an ash can.
Yeah. So what excites you guys the most about Dead Belt? Like, what about this game would you say is the most exciting part for you? There's a little bit of Zoom lag.
Oh, I love that it bridges the gap between role playing and board games. And we asked on Twitter, like, okay, so you guys have played Dead Belt by now, because the ash can's been out for so long. Would you say this is a ttrpg or a board game or somewhere on the bubble? Because it plays both fields, and that's what I love about it. But what's funny is that the reviews that came back were very, very mixed. Some people very strongly felt it was a board game, and some people very strongly felt it was a ttrpg.
It was like 35, and 30.
Yeah, and then plenty of people also were like, it's both. Like, if it's a board game, but you role play in it, so hey. So that was fun. But I do love that aspect of it, because I can recommend it to any of my friends. I can give it to anyone. I can get anyone to sit down and play with me, because even if they're not role players, if they're uncomfortable with improv or anything like that, it doesn't matter, because you can read the prompts and still have a very, very good time playing it, or you can start to elaborate. And I think we kind of suck people in, because once you start playing in character, it's kind of contagious, because everybody knows how to play, even if they pretend they've forgotten how. So like, we're playing a board game, I promise. And then before you know it, the Southern accent comes out, and it's contagious. And
now I need to get the hat. Like,
you're LARPing before you know it, right?
That's it.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. It's a strategy board LARP.
It is. So a good way to steal your friends from board games. Like, they won't even know that they're role playing until it's too late.
My favorite part about it is how quick it is. How quick to get to the table, obviously how quick to read it is, how quick to, grab the central mechanic, and then your first ship, you can be done in 5, 10, 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. But the game is going to be there waiting for you. So if you can, grab 15 minutes, you can play through a ship and maybe die in space, or, you'll survive to scrap another day, and you'll have some extra cred to spend before you go out again, and you can look forward to that tomorrow or the next day, or
get some upgrades and do it again until you die,
or
win. Winning, it's possible. I've done it.
So she was very okay. So let's go way back, because when it started, it was still technically a winnable game, but it's the same kind of winnable as like the lottery, right? Like, technically there is a significant statistical possibility. Like, it maybe I'm overemphasizing that. I don't think
you're reaching hard.
It's a statistical improbability.
Yeah, there you go.
But it does exist, right? Mm-hmm. And we were going through, oh man, I think it was like our 5th playtest, and she's like, I keep dying. Am I supposed to do that? I'm like, yes. And she's like, that's bad. That is bad, wrong fun. There should at least be a way that I can get better at this and like improve my odds. I'm like, okay, all right, that's fair. And now I was playing a video game at the time. It was Hard Space Shipbreaker, where you're taking apart spaceships and you're sorting the recyclables and salvaging whatever you can off these.
Yeah, I've
these
heard
old
about that game. Yeah.
Great game. Very zen, very
Right.
very kind of like tune out and like listen to the cool jangly space guitars and everything. And that's a Stampede.
That's
Sorry
my
about
dog. Sorry.
that. Right. So very, very zen. And I'm like, well, you're $1 billion in debt, and like no matter how zen it is, like you're never gonna pay that down. And she's like, okay, but like what's the juice in hard space? I'm like, well, as you go on, you go out and you get better at things. Oh no. And so then we put in the systems to where you get better at things, and she was right, because it all started to flick and sing. And I know, with this blurred background.
For a second, it's been not too bad, but you bored full out for a second there. But
Mm-hmm.
no, I that feedback loop is so important. I saw somebody who plays, video games, like that feedback loop of getting better. Like I play Hades a lot, and like why am I on my 200th Hades run? Well, because I'm way better than I was when I started. And like for me, that feedback loop is very powerful. It goes in spurts. Like I will play a bunch of Hades for like a while, and then I will not play it at all. But then I will crave it again, and then go back for it. And it is really that that loop you're describing. And like
it is.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's like it's a serotonin dump, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like I'm good and I'm clever and I have worked so hard to like get to this level that it's very satisfying. Like especially when there's that element of like I've seen this before, I've done this before. I know how far I can push myself. Maybe I'll push myself a little bit further because I think I'm better now, right?
That's me in RimWorld. That's my I'll boot it up a bajillion. I think I've got like something ridiculous, like 400 hours played on this game. It's sad how many hours of my life have been spent playing RimWorld, but it's just satisfying. If I just want to turn my brain off for a few hours,
exactly.
I'm like, all right, we're gonna put it on Strive to Survive, and we're just gonna see what happens.
Exactly. That's when you play games like that, right? Like because the familiarity is what makes them work. It's what makes you be able to like turn off your brain, and that's what you need from that kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an interesting design space to hit in tabletop. I think it's like a hard design space to hit in tabletop, but it's an interesting one. And I do like the idea of being able to bring in another person into that, because that's usually very much a solo experience.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, this is like our date night game.
There you go.
Like so when we have a couple hours to ourselves at the end of the day, like we can, like, you want to do a couple birds real quick? Yeah, sure. We'll just what are you gonna build? I'll bring my void rat. Okay, well I'll take my cowboy and die in space again. It's a running joke. I always play a cowboy and I always die in space.
Mm-hmm.
I die spacewalking,
Every time.
What the cowboy is supposed to be good at.
Got you. So
it's usually oxygen, though. He says spacewalking, but it's running out of air out in space. Yeah.
Gotcha. I will say, I just one thing I was wondering, and maybe I don't know. This might only be a me thing. I'm not sure. Because like I feel like the game designers do this all the time, but it didn't surprise me as much for some reason. So I know that's a lot of set up for this question, which is like
now I'm excited though.
It is a real big genre shift, right, from Court of Blades to Dead Belt. For some reason, the genre shift, it just surprised me, and I don't know why. Because like a lot of people game design huge, very different. I don't know what about that caught me off guard between Court of Blades. Maybe because Court of Blades is just so thematic. Like it could be that. I don't know. But has anyone else besides me commented on that at all? Is that an interesting thing for you guys? Like what is that like, I guess, from your perspective?
I don't know if anybody's said that to me. I think at this point, everybody's gotten used to the fact that we are people don't follow us for a consistent theme or a consistent type of story, because it's just not ever going to happen. Our games just they run the gamut. So by the time we'd gotten around to Dead Belt, we had a few other weird games that had nothing to do with Court of Blades as well. So we have really varied interests, and we consume a lot of different types of media. We play a lot of games. We're inspired by a lot of different things. If a new SRD comes out, we'll get excited about a new SRD. It doesn't even have to be the media. We're just like, okay, what can we put on this SRD, and we'll make something really cool. So we don't, and it could, the time will tell. It could work against us in the long run, but at the moment, we're very happy just kind of making whatever we feel like playing. So Dead Note was a kind of a natural to us, and I don't know that anybody's really said anything about the whiplash that you undoubtedly get if you follow us.
The biggest through line that people have brought up to us is no matter what it is that we're building. The tone, we commit totally to a tone. It's not always the same tone. In fact, it's very rarely the same tone, but whatever that tone is, whether that be courtly intrigue or, weird fey nonsense or, space Western.
Well, maybe that's what it is, right? Maybe that's why I had that experience, because like the games are so tonally consistent. Like, if you're jumping headlong into a tone for each game, and it's a very different tone, but you're just going full on into the next tone. Like, maybe that's where that comes from, because it just is so like the game. I will say that is, I think, a strength of your games is like they really commit to those tones, to that genre, like a certain feel, and it like just kind of drips of it, right? And like that's what I think sells them really well too. It's like they start to sell themselves. I don't know how to put it into words other than that, but when something is so committed tonally, like that's what Court of Blades I think is why Court of Blades is so awesome. Like it's just like it gets what it is and sells itself super well. If that's
the hope.
Yeah,
that's absolutely the hope, because we want the game to facilitate a certain experience, and that certain experience comes out of the tonal conceit, right? Like, this is written like it's very scandal rag, very Italian Renaissance, very intriguing and romantic and scurrilous, right? Scandalous, not scurrilous, the other thing. And then you check out anything else in our catalog, it treats the subject matter with the same commitment.
Yeah. Well, I like to ask people, this will be an interesting learning experience, because I like to ask people about their TTRPG origin stories, but there's two of you, so there's kind of multiple origin stories in more ways than one. Like, because there's each of your TTRPG origin stories, and then there's sort of the origin story of developing games together. So, like, I'm very curious about all of the above. So, whatever makes the most sense for telling the story, I guess, would be a good place to start.
Sure.
I think you probably have the most like robust and interesting like origin story,
I guess. So I started playing RPGs when I was about 12. I was trapped on a teeny tiny little Air Force base in the North Atlantic. It was Lodges Field, Azores, Tercera, the Azores Islands.
Fully middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it's about 4 feet of land.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just, it's actually 4 miles by 3 miles, but whatever. Itty bitty little island, and there was nothing for a 12-year-old to do. And my friend in middle school asked me if I wanted to come and play a game on Friday with him and his dad and a couple of his buddies from work. I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? I got nothing else to do. Skating rink's already boring, so, and I sat down at this table. I went to the rec center, right? And there are these 4 like Air Force non-commissioned officers sitting in the rec center, smoking stogies and with all these books around them and all these weird dice. And they sat me down, and these wizards taught me how to play Dungeons and Dragons.
That's
and then
a pretty cool origin story, I have to say.
Here's where it gets weird though. 3 sessions later, the dungeon master has to call it off, like he's sick, and he couldn't get out of bed or anything. And the guys are like, we'll play like Axis and Allies or whatever. I'm like, no, I want to play. I'll run it. And so I ended up running a game for these like 3 non-coms in their 40s, and they're like, hey, that was actually pretty good, and then and I never stopped.
Yeah, wow, that's awesome.
One compliment.
Yeah, that's it. That's all it takes.
Well, Navi, when did you start playing TTRPGs?
Oh Lord, mine's not as interesting. So, I mean, I've always been a nerd. I'm a huge nerd. I've video games and like MMOs before MMOs were even a thing, like Little Korean Ragnarok, which was a pixel MMO. I played that when I was like 13, 14. Huge nerd. A lot of play by post role playing. And then I was fully 18, I think, when I was first invited to a Dungeons and Dragons group. And I was all about it. There was no resistance whatsoever. It was the only reason I hadn't played was due to lack of opportunity. So, somebody goes, "Hey, we're gonna play some Dungeons and Dragons," and I'm like, "Yes, absolutely." And that's pretty much it. I show up and I play, and you know, the group had all of the beautiful hallmarks of a kind of a toxic group that you read about on like Twitter that everybody complains about. Like I spent one whole game not actually getting to interact with anything because the GM gave me some kind of weird curse that nuked my main stat at the beginning, and because it was true to the rules, wouldn't lift it for anything, wouldn't give us an opportunity of any kind to have it lifted, and so I was useless for the entire 4 hours. Just sat there, kind of like, I guess I'm what are those little Muppets? Your mascot. I guess I'm a mascot.
Party mascot on a stick.
Yeah.
But despite all of that, I really loved the idea of role playing, and I played with that group for a good while. I would say several months played with that group, so that was pretty cool. And then I didn't really play anything again until anything in the TTRPG realm until I moved in with Shawn, which was funny because when I moved in, he's tells me, like, I have a Friday night game, right? And I'm like, oh, cool, poker, that's fine. I can play poker. I know. He's like, no, it's Dungeons and Dragons. And I was like, oh, cool, I'll make a druid, So
yeah, and it makes it sound like I'm surprised or whatever. And I guess in some small way I was, but we had been play by post role playing, like that's how we met.
Mm-hmm.
We met in a play by post forum. And so the fact that like she played tabletop games, like that was one of those things that like, it struck me as, oh, no way. Oh, wait, no, of course.
I mean, so it's been a long time and a lot of role playing because that was many years ago. I will not carbon date myself, but it was not yesterday.
Well, here's how I often carbon date people, which is like when you were talking about your first experience playing D&D, which edition of D&D was that?
That was 3.5. I think it was 3 and 3.5 had just come out, and everybody was mad because they had to rebuy the books, and I came in right at that moment.
I was a fighting man. My first game, so it was first edition D&D.
Fighting man.
That's how you can.
They didn't have the new ones because you couldn't get them on the island.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. I think that's a good way to like, carbon date when somebody. It's good enough. Like, but it's a little deceiving sometimes because you don't. You could like you just said, you could have played first, original D&D or first, AD&D or like second edition or whatever. You could play those, and 3.5 could be out. There's no reason why like your first experience like has to necessarily date you, but it is an interesting way of looking at it. So how did you? When did you start designing together? Like, how did that start?
It was weird. So we
weird.
It was very strange. We actually had a friend who she was into Dungeons and Dragons. She was into role play and everything. We actually met her on an MMORPG that we were playing.
Mm-hmm.
But we had just started playing Blades in the Dark, and we're like, hey, so do you maybe want to like play this new game with us? She's like, I don't know, like thieves in a haunted Victorian city, like it's not necessarily like my thing. I'm like, well, what's your thing? And she's like, I like a little bit of like romance and intrigue and like, okay, so have you ever played Dragon Age Inquisition? I'm like, yeah. And she's like, do you know like Orlane, the Wicked Eyes or Wicked Hearts and Wicked Eyes, something like that. That quest where at the Masquerade Ball, I want a game like that. I'm like, okay, well, I've been homebrewing D&D for like ever. Navi, do you think that we could build something like that? And Navi looks at me and she's like, we could absolutely build something like that. And so for the next Yeah.
Well, yeah, so it started off as a skin. It
Yeah.
started off as a skin on Blades in the Dark, so that's how Court of Blades got its start. It was never intended to be our debut into game design or anything like that. It's just we made it, and it ended up being really fun. And then we kind of posted it publicly to show people. It was available while it was in development. It was available publicly just as an open document the entire time, so people could come and they could check it out and see what we're doing.
Nobody knew
And
what
it,
but
no,
yes.
but the people who did see it, it gave us really great feedback.
Yeah.
We had a lot of encouragement from people that we just didn't expect to get encouragement from, because a lot of the, John Harper and a lot of the folks at Evil Hat actually popped up and were encouraging us before we even were calling ourselves game designers or anything. We were just like, yeah, they won't do that again. I have to go. I've lost my train of thought. Now it's you. Finish.
So yes, we got a lot of encouragement early, and then as it continued to develop, we ended up looking down at the Google Doc, and it was like 280 pages long, something like that.
It was obscene.
It was obscene, and the word count was too high, and we're looking at it, and it's like, okay, so this could sit in our desk drawer forever, and we could never talk about it again, or we could, because it was basically like our COVID project. The world shut down, and we suddenly had a whole bunch of time to sit down and talk game design together, and we had a really good time writing together again. And so we sat down and we built this world and these systems and all these factions and all this intrigue, and we played a bunch of games, and people seemed to really like it. And we're like, so again, like, we could let this die in obscurity, or we could, I don't know, be complete nutcases and put it on Kickstarter, and when nobody wants it or something like that, then we'll at least have given it a shot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Kickstarter did exceptionally well, and so now on Thursday our books are arriving, and
I just saw that on Twitter today. I was like, oh, that's serendipitous timing to talk about it. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I can't even begin to say how excited I am, because it's been forever. I love Court of Blades. I love the game. I love developing for it. I love running it, everything about it, but the game has been cursed. The Kickstarter, the whole process of getting it edited and the art done and all of that, all the timelines got blown. Our artists were dropping like flies. We kept losing our artists. To very real.
Sure.
Like, I'm not saying that they're flakes. They had real problems, but it kept pushing the timeline further and further and further. I think we ended up having something bonkers, like 7 artists over the course of almost a year or two to finally push it to completion. And then when we went to go print it, it was right. Oh my goodness. The printing costs in America had just doubled, tripled overnight. The paper shortage hit, and all of a sudden everybody just uniformly, their prices skyrocketed. And all of a sudden our budget was blown. Like, we had $20,000 set aside for printing, and we were expecting to spend 15, so we had 20 set aside, and then we went to go get it printed, and they were saying 40, and we were like, oh, that's a big problem. And then we ended up having to reach out overseas. We found a very highly recommended company in Europe who was able, I don't know, don't ask me how, in Europe they can print the books and send them to us for less than Americans can print it and walk in, like, I go pick it up myself.
Right.
So then we had that huge timeline. The back and forth took forever because opposite schedules. So I'd send an email and they'd get back to me the next day, and then I'd get back to them the next day. So it took weeks just to get everything formatted perfectly. And then they finally get it on a boat, and it's like, okay, it'll be 4 to 10 weeks. We don't know. And it's like, so when it finally arrived, I was so excited. I'm like, okay, surely it's going to be a couple of weeks now that it's here at the port. And then we got the phone call today, and they're like, oh no, it'll be there Thursday. And I'm like, we're actually already prepared, but there's still that feling of, what do we forget? Did we forgot something? I know we did.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it is going to be very nice to finally finish that. It'll be wrapped up at this rate by the end of the month, and I'm just so very excited for that, to have like a big project by that officially finished, I'm already like basking in the glow to come. I'm so excited.
You've got to understand, like we had Skyworthy, which we itch funded, itch funded in February, fulfilled in March, like, and then we had a translation, localization, a Kickstarter on our translation localization team, Coleman to Pell. They ran a Kickstarter. Not a Kickstarter, but
something very popular.
Yeah.
It's crowdfunding, but it's something popular in Spain.
So they ran a crowdfunding campaign. They printed and fulfilled their Kickstarter for that game as well, all in the time that it has taken. Like, not even. They did that in like 3 months. We did that in a month.
But yeah, basically we were able to go from like crowdfunding to distribution to translation to another crowdfunding to distribution on an entire project, while still just sitting on our hands waiting
for the books to be printed.
Yeah, it was such a big waiting game. We made a lot of connections though, so that's what good has come out of this. Next time we do hardcovers, we have actually gotten into touch with a really good hardbound cover producer here in the United States that has reasonable prices, still a little bit higher than Europe, but not having to deal with the shipping is really big. So as long as nothing major customs, and as long as nothing major changes, we have a path forward for future hardcovers that's not going to be as strenuous on the timeline, which is one of the good things that has come out of all of this chaos.
That's the thing. We were just kids, Yeah. We had no idea what we didn't know.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And now we know everything. We know too much.
Now we know enough.
But you're still doing it. That's part of it, because a lot of people do get like burned out in those kinds of experiences, or they like get turned off by those kinds of experiences. I mean, so I'm almost afraid to ask this, but I do know how gamers could be, and when people don't necessarily get something in the timeline they're expecting, they don't always handle it well. So has there been any challenges as far as that goes, as far as like, interacting with your backers?
I don't know if it's because we've been so big on communication. We've been very transparent every step of the way, and just very plainly, this is what's happening and what's going on. And we've also made it clear on multiple occasions that cutting back on quality to push the timeline faster was not an option, because we could have pushed without all of the promised art and they would have had it 6 months ago, but that's not what we promised in the Kickstarter. And so for the most part, with the exception of one or two maybe like cranky ass people probably having a bad day, everybody's overwhelmingly supportive. As a matter of fact, infinitely more people have, especially when we were having our meltdown, when full head on fire meltdown when we saw the shipping costs, or not the shipping costs, the printing costs had skyrocketed. A bunch of people had the opposite response. They were like, don't put yourselves out, we'll wait until the prices come down. If you can't produce the game for 2 years, then that's what it is. We had more of that, and that was not an option for me either, but they had a lot of that. And we just wonder, the community has been really wonderful to us, and I don't know, sometimes I get the feeling, at least people tell me, it's because I'm scary. Everybody says I'm a little scary, and I don't know that that's true, but maybe that's why nobody says anything to us.
They're afraid of a fake curse, right? That's what they're worried about.
That's right.
That's why we're exceptionally hard to film. See this? We come in cryptid vision.
I think the reality is that, I mean, I'm, as someone that spends too much money on Kickstarters for TTRPGs, like, you back them, especially if you back indie TTRPGs, right? Like, you're supporting independent creators, you're supporting their vision and their project. If you wanted just to get the next mass marketed TTRPG product, you could, but you're choosing to back a Kickstarter for a different reason. I think for the most part, that's how people approach those things. And like, people know that timelines change, that you have to make adjustments, and like the thing, especially with the doubling of the printing costs, right? Like,
that was a scary day.
I can't even imagine. And so it makes total sense to me, regardless of my crack earlier about how gamers can be sometimes. It makes total sense to me that, like, I would never want somebody who I supported on Kickstarter to suddenly like lose money on their project because of forces outside of their control. And we were all living through an unprecedented period of time where things were just going crazy. And I think everyone was feeling it, right? Everyone's feeling it. So like it's understandable on that level too. Like we can all relate to the fact that like, hey, none of this is none of what's happening in the world right now is going as we all planned. So
nothing is fair, but that's okay. We're gonna make it through together.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah. So I'm not surprised to hear that the community was supportive.
We've got a really excellent community. Like there are a staggering amount of people who are very supportive and are there to lend a sympathetic ear and wait for quality. That's the really, we made it clear early on that we don't cut corners. Like that's never been who we are and what we do. And even though the timeline would have thanked us, like we put out the best work we possibly can, or we don't put out work.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so when the shipment arrives, you can pop a champagne and you can make the cocktail.
That's it.
That's right.
Get the supplies. I didn't put champagne in it for that reason on purpose, but it's a good excuse, right?
Let's see if I can find like a violet cordial here.
There you go. Exactly. So if all right, so Dead Belt's on Kickstarter now. And I do promise, folks, I actually said I was going to link the Kickstarter onto the chat while we were talking, and I didn't do that, but it will be in the show notes for people who are watching it later, and I'm just going to do that now while we're talking. Just was being forgetful.
You can even do tinyurl.com/deadbelt.
There we go. So is there already something in the works for next? Like, what are you working on?
There's always something in the works.
Of course, that's why I love to ask that
You're going to have
question.
to be more specific.
Yeah, we've got like we said, we've got the compost pile that is about 20 games deep. We've got the coming soon, which is about, well, yeah, that's what it is. It all sits there and gets happy.
Fermenting.
It is.
It's a kombucha bucket.
Anyway.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay,
I like that more than compost pile, honestly.
Fine. Okay, see how this goes. But right now, things that we're working on, we've got Disaster Quest, which is a reworking, retooling of a Forge in the Dark system, kind of in the same vein as our Disaster Peace and Disaster Wing, but it's a fantasy game with a little bit more of a tactical layer than Forge in the Dark usually has, and that is a VR MMO isekai fantasy game. So that's going to be really fun.
Cool.
What else we got?
We have Bright Souls. Bright Souls, which is another solo co-op game. It is quite a bit different from Dead Belt, though. It's a dungeon busting game that has a lot of tactical grid play and procedural generation, though. So we have a love of procedural generation. So anytime that there's a solo or co-op game, there's probably going to be procedural generation.
You got to keep it fresh, is what it is. Like for a solo game without a game master there to make snap decisions, or a really robust set of oracles like you would find in like Ironsworn or Starforged. You've got to have enough narrative juice to and
variation.
Yeah.
There you go, that's the word, to keep it fresh and interesting.
Yeah.
That's our challenge.
That all sounds amazing. I guess I usually end on that question, but I do have one more question I'm going to ask, because it's unique, I think, to the fact that you're both on the show, which is like, how do you handle your like work-life balance, given that you work together and live together? Like, how do you handle that? What's that look like for you? Or given that you work and play as work, maybe it's not as much of an issue. I think about this kind of thing a lot.
You have an answer for that?
No, I'm gonna let you.
You're gonna let me answer that? Okay, fair enough.
I dare you.
Double dare you. No, it's there's never a moment where I am I'm worried about my work-life balance, because my work and life is the woman who's sitting right next to me. I am madly and desperately in love with this woman. I want to spend absolutely every moment of my life with her. And that's, I have the best job in the world because she is my coworker. I think Oh, thank you. I think the only time that it becomes difficult is when I feel like I'm not upholding my end of the bargain, and then I have a little think. Usually, I take a drive, go get groceries, something like that.
Because I work too much. He
That's
thinks he
what it
doesn't
is.
work enough because I work too much.
What about you?
Yeah. No, I mean, if you gave the answer that was the right answer, if I'm going to be my typical like overly analytical A-type personality, I'd say that both of us also lead really rich inner lives. We've always been sort of self-entertained type individuals, not the most social people. I think that that really helps because there's a really good match in personality between us, and we can sit in a room together and enjoy each other's company for hours without actually saying anything.
We
right?
have to be on.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. That really does help, right? The ability to like, it's a special relationship with somebody who you can like do that with, where you can sit and like read or work on your own thing, and like, and yet the company is still feeding you, even though you're like in your own kind of like, as you said, inner world. I think that's a unique relationship.
That's the perfect word for it. That it is feeding is what it is. Like it's a give and take, and like I said, that feedback loop where we keep each other moving and motivated.
Yeah. Well, thank you for indulging my that last question. I very curious about how I think about that stuff a lot, and I've been thinking about it a lot lately. So yeah, this genuinely very curious. When you work with somebody and live with somebody and love somebody, like what does that look like in terms of balance? And I loved your answer. It's awesome. Well, why don't you give? I know you gave the URL a minute ago, but give us the pitches, the social pitches, the where to find the Kickstarter, all that stuff one more time, so everybody can make sure they go right now and follow if they haven't. Like, you know.
All right. So the Kickstarter for Dead Belt, the solo co-op tabletop role-playing game of desperate space scavengers, is at tinyurl.com/deadbelt, just like it sounds. You can find us on Twitter. That's the easiest place to find us. I am at Drake and Dice, and she is at Navi Musing.
And thanks to our new community manager, you can also find us on Facebook, but I don't have the link because I'm not really good at it. So it's a couple of Drakes. We're on there somewhere, I promise. But if you're a Facebook person, we're there.
Find a link eventually on a couple of drakes.com.
Oh, yep. Oh, no, I have it on there. You're right.
Yes.
There we go.
I
did see the Facebook earlier. Actually, now that you mention it, when I was like scavenging around, I didn't look at. I don't like. There are some really great ttrpg groups on Facebook. Don't get me wrong.
I'm not good at Facebook.
But like me either. I don't know. My parents maybe are the only people I know who are good at Facebook. So. But yeah, people should go back it right now. There's 22 days to go as the time of recording this, and so plenty of time to go check out those tiers, check out those reward levels, and get backing. Yeah, that's exciting. Well, thank you both so much for taking time during the Kickstarter to come on the show.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, without a doubt. I'm gonna ask the two of you to hang out in my digital green room, aka Zoom channel, and I'm going to try to switch back to me so we can wrap the show up here. Get that we got that cocktail recipe back up on the screen, folks. Don't forget to go ahead and try to make it. We even got you a variation, a Saint Germain variation earlier in the show, so you can make that variant and see what you think of it. Huge thanks again to our guests, just a couple of Drakes, coming here on the show, Holy Happy Hour this week. I'm really excited for Navi and Shawn to be on the show and making the time. So huge thanks to them, and huge thanks to all of you for watching the show. Don't forget to hit follow if you're watching this live here on Twitch, or don't forget to consider subscribing to the channel if you're watching this on Twitch. If you only caught part of tonight's show, you'll be able to watch all of it on demand for a brief time on Twitch. Definitely, Mosbrick in the chat, I don't get the joke that you're making. I don't get it. You can watch all of find Holy Happy Hour Batman on YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube. Hit the little bell so you can know when we go live. We didn't go live on YouTube tonight because OBS, which is what I use to stream, updated, and I didn't update myself in time to deal with it. So that means that we didn't actually stream live to YouTube tonight, but this will be live on YouTube. This will be live. It'll be up on YouTube, shortly thereafter, like the day after we record this. It'll be up. So you can follow us on YouTube. You can hit the little bell to get notified when we go live for every episode. And all of the episodes of Holy Happy Hour Batman are available to watch there on our YouTube channel. Huge thanks to Joshua Wise for the artwork on my stream, and thanks to Doctor Octoroc for the use of his music before and after the show. So I am and have been and will continue to be that gamer priest, Ben. Next week, we are off once again. It's a cream joke. I see. It's a creme de violette cream joke that Mossberg was making in the chat there. I see. Next week, we're off again the Monday after that. So we are back, as I said at the top of the show. The 19th, we will not be doing an episode. The 26th, we will host another design team, 2 more great guests, Dinoberry Jam, partner designers, Nevin and Jam are coming on the show. Nevin was on the show a few months ago and is coming back, and we're having Jam on the show for the first time, and I'm really excited to talk to them. They've recently started designing together and consulting and doing all kinds of really cool stuff together as Dinoberry Jam Press, and they're awesome. They recently won awards for Gun and Slinger. I think they have a couple other projects out right now. They're just really awesome designers. I'm really intrigued by the stuff they're doing with Dinoberry Jam. I think it looks really cool. They've got a great new website you can go check out. So yeah, really excited to talk to them on Monday, September. What did I say it was? Monday, September 26th. You're definitely going to want to. Same bat time, same bat channel. Come back and hear that interview. So for now, folks, have the holiest and happiest of hours, my friends. And we will see you here again in 2 weeks. Thanks for watching.